And last but not least, we present our last movie reviews on BBB Radio. So in this
Right.
case, it will be a double feature. So I will talk about Opus, and we will close
Right.
things off with Black Bag.
Sure.
So Opus, saw the ad earlier on this year. This is the directorial debut of Mark Anthony Green. I'm not familiar with this guy at all, but
Right.
he also wrote this film as well, right? But the main reason why I wanted to see this is because it stars, we Gil, Ayo Edeberry, right? She's the
Right.
star in this, right? And this is an actress that I've always been like eager, whose work I've always been eager to see, right? I recently, I should say not recently, like a few years back, I talked about Bottoms, which is a pretty solid, high
Yeah. Funny. Yeah.
school comedy, well, kind of poking fun at high school comedies as well, through
Right.
a
Right.
queer lens, basically. She was also in Inside Out 2, you know what I mean? And of course,
Right.
she was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, right? She even had
Right.
a,
Right.
a great little, well, she had a great episode, I should say, in SNL, just the other day, right? But yeah, this was her basically. This film, Opus, this is her in an E24 release film, right? It's like, oh, okay, what is this, right? And I saw the trailer, looked intriguing enough. It also stars John Malkovich, pretty much playing the antagonist here. And it has that E24 style of just weirdness, where you're not really sure what's going on, but it looks like visually it looks very inventive and stylish. And you just want to see more of it, right? And I was just there thinking, hey, maybe it might come out theatrically in Trinidad. And it didn't. But when it was released theatrically abroad, it was getting a lot of bad reviews, right? But I still wanted to see for myself, right? So thankfully, just day actually ago, it, was released digitally, right? So I've got a chance to watch it. So what's about in a nutshell? It is built around I had to say built around, right? The image and persona of this pop superstar by the name of Alfred Moretti, who is played by John Malkovich, right? He is this queer pop artist who has just put out like some of the most popular songs of the 90s or whatnot. There's even a really interesting montage where you see like in modern times, right, where people are singing to one of his hit songs, right? I just seen people in various occasions around the world basically singing lines from it, right? Also, the slight spoiler, in that montage you even see Lil Nas X. Yeah, he had all
Okay.
his singing what he likes. That was really clever, right? And kind of like the show winking at him at the same time, right? So, but the thing is, he hasn't put out an album in like a hot minute, like a hot minute, right? So he actually just puts out this video out of the blue, this YouTube video, just basically saying, yeah, new album is out, coming out just now, but I am going to have this exclusive listening party, and it's gonna be in my mansion, and I'm only gonna invite a select few people, right? So what the select few who is invited is Eo's character, who is April, right? Sorry, Ariel. Ariel. She is this reporter, but the thing is, she is working alongside, a guy by the name of Stan, right? Who is this veteran in quotes, right? Reporter. But the thing is, as I mentioned, he's played by Murray Bartlett, right? Who, if I'm not mistaken, yes, he was in the first season of The White Lotus, which I still have not gotten around to watching. But even though everybody have been hyping the shit out of it, still haven't got any chance to watch it, right? But I will, hopefully, right? But yeah, and how it works, right, is that Stan is pretty much saying, here's what, Ariel, I don't really think you have it in you to do like this full article about this guy, right? And put it up and get, press and whatnot, right? So I just want you to just take notes for me. I gotta take them notes and I gotta put out the article. Like just straight up, right? So you see the little dilemma that Ariel is in, right? So is the two of them and a few other people are invited to his mansion, right? And just from the jump, yeah, things look really creepy. It's established that he is, well, he has these individuals who are working alongside him who are part of this cult that is called the Levelists, right? And they have their own ideology when it comes to life, right? But it's usually kind of centered on people who as I say, shine the brightest as stars, right? So in particular, this is why they kind of lean in, or I should say, this is why Alfred is leaning towards that group, right? Almost as if, his popularity is God given in a sense, right? Like he has a purpose, like he's destined to do this and he has a message that he has to give out, right? So they're there for a whole weekend now, well, I should say for a 3-day period, just basically for this whole album listening session, right? But while Ariel is there, she is seeing just a bunch of weird stuff happening. And surprise, surprise, people disappear or they're killed. And it's in very morbid ways. And, she's just trying to make sense of it all. And I'll just stop there, right? So here's the best way I will sum this up, right? This is a knockoff of E24's Midsummer
Right.
from E24.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Because the song more like the movie with Channing Tatum the other day. I still haven't seen that.
Or Blink Twice. Yes.
Right.
I saw
And
people
like
make
that.
reference it, but I haven't seen that show as yet, right? Yeah. Just the moment they introduce, they say the word cult, and
Right.
like they have a moment just like in Midsummer where they have this like banquet scene, and people are laughing and smiling and they eating all these weird foods, all that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, this is some Midsummer shit right there, right?
Right.
And like this show, like just in itself could have been like this great way to touch on celebrity worship, because I know that's the approach. I know that's what they getting at, right? But unfortunately, this was just bland, dull, and ultimately shockingly pointless shit, because. All right, so let's get the good out of the way, right? Because there is some good. I thought that EU was solid in the role, very expressive with her face and whatnot, especially when it comes to the like freaky nightmare stuff and whatnot. Just the way how she reacts to things, is very logical, makes a lot of sense and whatnot. And she is quite believable and, relatable as just this person who kind of just wants to get their name out there, but they just feel bogged down by politics and as far as your business place goes. But then you're in this situation where you're just seeing all this weird stuff and you're trying to tell people, look, there's something really wrong here, and nobody wants to listen to you. Yeah, all that's relatable. That's what you need for a show like this, right? And then you also have John Malkovich, who is hammy, but not too hammy. Like people will say that he was kind of hamming it up a bit, but I felt like he just knew the right times when to be over the top, right? Because yes, he is this like just moves in this sort of lavish over the top kind of way, sort of reminiscent of like The Weeknd in The Idol, like just how he moved, like very superficial, like I'm God's gift to music, all that kind of stuff, right? But there's still something very off about it, right? And ever so often you'll just see just how weird and twisted he is, right? But I thought that he played that very well, though, in terms of character, right? But another E24 show I'll bring up here is the Front Room, right, which featured Brandy and Catherine Hunter. I remember covering that last year alongside your review of The Substance, right? I remember where I said that show relied too much on Catherine Hunter's performance, and she was just being hammy and being campy and just being so over the top as being this elderly woman, right? In this case, it's not so much that John is holding the movie together, but he does what he is given, right? And that's the unfortunate thing about it. Like everybody in the show is pretty much given something, but it's not really much to kind of make you care about what's going on, right? Even McGill, Amber Midthunder is there as well. So yes, she actually appeared 2 shows this year. I think this movie actually came out around the same time that Novocaine did, right? But yeah, she is there as one of the servants. Well, technically that's what she is, but she isn't given much lines. But then eventually she kind of shows a dark side in it as well. And all right, it's fine, but still not much. She's not given much to do, right? And yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about the show. First of all, that is just that she isn't given much to do. The actors aren't given much to do, right? Because the story itself just kind of scrapes the surface, right? It just feels very unbelievably undercooked though, because I know I could tell what the show is trying to touch on. It's trying to touch on celebrity worship, right? We should worship the ground that they walk on, and every song that they put out is a masterpiece. And I should mention, speaking of music, right? So they have a couple of moments where they have I don't know if it's John doing the singing doing the vocals. It could be, for all I know, right? but it's very Weekend-esque kind of lyrics,
Right.
in terms of the subtlety of it all, or lack of subtlety, right? So if he's talking about sex, you'll be kind of frank, or you'll just see some kind of double entendre or something like that, right? Is that kind of vibe, right? And it's very like wavy pop shit, right? So once you hear the music, you'll know the vibe that you get that, right? But yeah, I don't know if John did the vocals, but I don't say that he was bad. But again, like I don't know, I really want to find out if John do it though. So it's, in other words, I don't see that he's a bad singer, but I have the feeling that somebody sung those vocals for him, Dre. Like I just really have that feeling. But if it is John Doe, then yeah, not a great singer, but not a terrible singer neither. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? But yeah, ultimately this show just really felt just half baked, just very undercooked, right? Because it's trying to touch on relevant matters, but it just doesn't know how to do it. It just relies on cliches and stuff that you've seen before. Like again, if you've seen one film about cults, then you know where the show will go. You know how characters will eventually go mad and crazy and all that kind of stuff, right? But for me, what was the massive letdown for me? The biggest letdown for me, I should say, was the ending, Dread, because the ending is trying to tell you, right? Whilst not giving you too much detail, but trying to tell you why, all this weirdness and death and madness going on, right? And when you think about it, right? It just makes no sense. Like it just makes absolutely no sense, right? Now somebody, some video essay could come and say, well, actually, it's really meant to show, why,
Right. Right.
celebrities get away with
Something.
certain things and why people,
Right. Right.
why do you still worship them? It's similar to like what the idol touch on, right? Even though
Right.
the person, the singer, is trash, the music is so great, right? So it kind of outweighs the trashiness, right? But no, what happens? Like just try to be as vague as possible, right? So the intent of Alfred, right, as in John Malkovich's character, is revealed, right? But it's done in a point to kind of put something out into the spotlight. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, why all the deaths then? Why bring all these people to, slight spoiler, kill them off then? What's the point then? If the idea is that you want attention, especially from the media, then you could have gone about it in a much different way. Why invite these people, kill them, and just act as if, oh, well, we're actually trying to make a point here. It's like, but the point makes no sense, right? It just doesn't, right? And the show just ends. It just, they're like, you don't get a concrete answer as to why. And it's not, even if it's meant to be open to interpretation, it still don't make a lick of sense, because it just sort of makes everything that Alfred does at the mansion just sort of ultimately pointless. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? So yeah, surprise, surprise. I was massively let down by Opus, man. Like this could have been the moment where AO really showed as, a lead actress or whatnot, but I felt like her talents was just wasted this. Everybody talents pretty much were wasted this, right? I can't see that there was a terrible performance in this, right? It's just the script was just kind of bad. The direction was good. I'll give it that. There was some really great shots, great use of camera work here or there, but just that script was just weak and just bland. It just had something to say, but just didn't know how to do it. And I'll close this. It really feels like, because Mark kind of get you with E24 almost, like he kind of get you with them as a distributor. He kind of had to do things in the E24 kind of way, so it had to be weird and artsy for the sake of it, right? But you could be weird at the arts, but you still had to make a point. You still had to tell me something. And I felt with this show, it didn't really tell me anything. Outside just saying, yeah, some celebrities are weird. And that's it. No. Nah, you had to give it more than that, man. And this show, again, just couldn't do that, unfortunately, right? So, yeah. Strong 2 out of 5. I want back my money. Yes, and yes, I watch it
Yeah.
home, but I still want back my money, man. This was a disappointment. And lastly, like, it will be back like people kind of make the argument that this is a horror, but no, I more saw it as a psychological thriller. Like it doesn't go into Ari Aster levels of horror like say Hereditary or Midsummer, right? It teases it, but it doesn't go that far, unfortunately, right? But yeah, the ironic thing about it though is just that it feels like just a mismatch, of better A24 films, of better
Right.
psychological thrillers, of better psychological horrors, released by A24 otherwise. That's really what it feels like, right? That's really what it feels like. It tries to have identity, but it just can't really make up its mind as to what it is, right? And yeah, just the mere fact that it feels like a ripoff of Midsummer. But you mentioned what's the show Blink Twice? Yeah, I would be
Right.
surprised if I watch Blink Twice and see shades of it in this movie. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna watch Opus again, right? But if I watch Blink Twice, I'm like, yeah, Opus ripped that off and did talk about this too, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, this was a letdown. I mean, if you want to see it, I guess go see it. But this could have been so much better, right? And yeah, that's that. So yes, let's talk about something better. Let's talk about Black Bag, right? So
Oh,
funny thing, right? Just quick preamble. This movie came out last week at the time of us recording this, right?
right.
And in my mind, I knew that this was coming out on digital a couple days, like literally a
Right.
couple days before us, like literally yesterday time of us we talking, at the time of us recording this, right? But I tell myself, but wait now, but Black Bag in cinema, like it can't just come out on
Yeah.
digital quick just so. And yeah, much to my surprise, it did. Well, actually, not too much to my surprise. Like I kind of saw it
Right.
coming, but I was like, nah, man, nah, not too early. And the reason why I'm saying this too is because when myself and Ricardo we met up in San Fernando, for a
Right.
little post birthday lime and whatnot, right? Yeah, we decided that to watch
Yeah, we went
Black
to check
Bag
it out.
in
Yeah.
Gemstone, and
Right.
it was just great to this that experience. Cause I've never been
Yeah.
to Gemstone down south, and it was great, right? The
Right.
sound, the visuals, everything was great, right? But I tell myself, even though I enjoyed seeing the film, I wanted to see it again, right? Because
Right. Right.
I felt that there were a couple of things that I missed out narratively, right? But I tell
Right.
mys- but I tell myself, all right, well, when it comes out on digital, I will watch it, right? And yeah, even though I was a little skeptical about its release, it actually came out yesterday, so I watched it last night. I took note of the stuff that I missed out narratively, and yeah, so in other words, I don't know about you, Ricardo, but I am going off of my second viewing of the film in under a
Right.
week. That is
No,
crazy, right? That's crazy. But yeah, Ricardo, well, first off, before you jump into the substance of this, right? Did you rewatch your film?
I did not. Uh, just remembered everything what I watched, the movie that I watched, but I didn't see the movie twice. No.
Okay, fine, 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 fine. But yeah, take it
Yeah, this is
away.
when we watch it together. That was when I watched it.
All right, no problem. But yeah, take it away. What was Black Bag about?
Sure. So, Michael Fassbender plays George Woodhouse, this British intelligence officer, and basically he has his superior some super secret, plot device called Cerberus. Right? It's a program that we learn later what it does. Uh, and he, is he and others is a bunch of suspects involved in, you know the other spies inside the office, because you find out a little later that, well, Meacham is killed, and you have to figure out, well, who did it, and then what's going on with this Cerberus thing, because somebody stole it. And you find out it now George now has to make sense of the situation, because he thinks somebody in the inn playing with the is the one who give it up, and you learn who did it and why and what. So it's both a spy thriller and a whodunit kind of reverse whodunit kind of thing, in terms of who had to figure out what doing what, and spy chicanery within spy chicanery, and characters being, well, morally and ethically and emotionally compromised, even though they're supposed to be super stoic modern spies. And that's the story. It's starring a bunch of great actors and actresses, like Cate Blanchett, Tom Burke, Naomi Harris, Renee Jean Page, Pierce Brosnan is in this, which is pretty good, and whatnot and so on. And yeah, um, I thought it was really good. The whole thing felt like a kind of I make the joke. It feels like a basically an audition for Bond, a collective audition for a Bond film,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Well,
including the director.
except for Naomi though, because she was in a Bond film.
She's already in Bond, right?
Yeah.
Right, she's Bond ready. Yeah. And of course, well, that's what I think so too. Is like, oh well, you have two Bond people coming in, and there's a bunch of other people who we kind of think could be Bond because, like, I remember they float that Regis Jean Page could be a Bond guy, or even Michael Fassbender, and even Kate Blanchett. I remember being floated for the idea, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's it's that it comes together. It looks great, solid script. And the only thing is that I think it mildly unravels in the third act. I felt it could have. Well, I've said my own take on it later, but uh, it's this was really good for me. I just thought it was like really excellent. It comes together really well. Um, I'm glad I went in as blind as possible. I went into this more or less completely blind. I don't remember even watching a trailer. I just knew it had a movie called Black Bag. I heard it was okay. That's all I heard. I didn't know anything. Went in almost I think completely blind. I didn't know who was in this or nothing. And I'm really glad I went in as blind as I can because it was just a solid mood. You know, I was there with you. We drank a beer. Well, I drank a beer, and solid stuff. Uh, yeah, I dug the hell out of this.
Yeah, me too as well. I went in as blind as you, right? So I was surprised to see Naomi Harris in this. I didn't know that she was this.
Right,
I was
right,
I was shocked to see P.S. Brunson in this. I thought that was
right,
just
right.
spot on, very
Yes,
clever.
yes, yes.
There's a clever bit of casting there, right? I just knew Michael Fassbender. I didn't know that Kate Blanchett was in it, right? So yeah,
Right.
in retrospect, it's a good thing that I went in blind, right? Because the trailer kind of gives a little, not too much, but it gives you the kind of gist as to what the conceit is, right? But with us going in blind, we now piecing together things as they play out, right? And I thought, I would say, just in general, if you're going blind, I think you'll enjoy it a lot more, right?
Yeah.
Now, I say this too because I imagine for some people, right, when they go into this after seeing the trailer, they're going to think spy thriller, right? Especially the way,
Right.
unfortunately, how the trailer is marketed, right? So, slight spoiler, there's a moment involving an explosion, right? And
Right.
I know a lot of people going to go into this and think, oh, this show is going to be chock full of explosions. I'll tell you,
No,
they are
it's
not.
just one.
I'll just leave it
It's
there.
just one
There's just
explosion.
one. There's just one.
It's just one
And,
explosion.
and
Right.
or I should say that there's like no, three shots actually of the same
Right.
explosion. That's all I will see. That's all I'll see.
Right.
Three shots of the same explosion, right? But that's that, right? But yeah, a lot of people will go into this expecting, yeah, when you hear spy thriller, they're gonna think, oh, it's people standing behind, telephone poles with silencers or the guns or all that kind of
Right.
stuff, right?
No, no,
Men
that's
in
like that.
trench
Yeah.
coats. It's not like that, right? It's not like
Right.
that. I actually think that it is quite commendable from Steven Soderbergh and David Coep, who wrote the script, to say, yeah, when it comes to the genre of spy thrillers, that's the first thing you think about. You think about
Right.
the James Bond archetype, right? The guy who standing by
Right.
the corner with the gun, waiting for you to show up, and then kill you. But that's
Right.
not what we do it here. It's something different. We want to make it real, a little bit more realistic and whatnot. But in true Steven Soderbergh style, it's more about just the banter between characters, just about just it's just him exploring relationships, both work and
Yeah.
personal, right? So I love the idea that the main leads, Michael and Kate, right? They've been married for years, but they're also spies, right? But
Right.
as Michael's character says, yeah, there's things about her that I don't know and vice versa. But if she
Right.
was put in a position where she could die, I will do everything I can to extradite her. I will do everything I can, even though she might be keeping something from me, or vice versa. I will do everything I can just to get her out. I love that, right? And I love how the show just sort of explores that through this whole disappearance thing
Right.
of the whatever this what you
Cerberus.
call,
Yeah,
yes,
it's a
yeah,
program. You learn later what it is, and here's the thing. As I said, the one thing I'll say that this not a big problem, but it slightly bothered me as I felt the story doesn't flow as well because it's in the modern day. And I think they
huh,
try to tie it to something modern. Well, in this case, I don't know if it's a big spoiler to say this, but it is tied to the Ukraine war with Russia,
right,
right? Somewhat. It feels like that at least. At least it's like something analogous to it. But I felt this because of that they had to modernize it. It also like logically it had some hiccups for me because
right,
of all the modern technology involved. And I felt if this was like, it felt like an old script trying to bring back into a modern day,
yeah,
but because of modern technology, this kind of thing. That old joke that cell phones would kill like 90% of plots. in the past, because just the limits of technology is what drives the story or
Right.
holds the story together structurally. And I felt that had this problem involving a couple characters, like, hey, if because of modern technology you should have made this decision instead of that decision, in my humble opinion. That's how at least I felt. And I
Yeah.
felt that only nitpick is that, and it's a nitpick. I'll admit it's kind of a nitpick, which is um, this should have been a period piece. If this was like in the 80s or even the 70s, it might have worked. Another thing I would like to see is if they switch up the rules and the characterization with the actors. That would have been a little more interesting too. Like, if Rennie was in George's place, like if Reggie played George instead or something like that, I would have liked to see something like that. But whatever, it's fine.
Right.
As it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's about
I
that's my
understand,
only
but
complaint about it. That's my only complaint, really.
yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
Because yeah, admittedly, while I was watching this, it had the feel of an old school spy thriller, right? But not
Right.
like,
Exactly.
not the one that not the ones that are reliant on excessive thrills and action, right? But
Yeah,
just more about subtlety and dialogue and
it's a
what information you're being fed, who knows what, who knows who
oh
is
no,
that kind of vibe.
it's totally a John le Carre boilerplate
Yes.
boiler.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that, right? It's in that vein of it, as I said. So I think the story would have worked a little better if it was older. In my humble opinion, that's about
Yeah.
it, because it's just that aspect of characters making certain decisions as it was.
Now,
There's
wondering
there's
if
something I make.
I wonder now if in retrospect, if as a period piece, if more people would have gotten into it quicker, right? In terms of, because I think
Well,
to me, like how I see this, like I have no problem with it being set in modern times, right? But I just think that a lot of people go into this one thinking, oh, it's just gonna be spy thrills and action, right? I'll throw an
right,
example, because I think just a day or two later we're supposed to get in the Amateur, right? Featuring
right,
starring Rami Malek, right?
right.
That is also set in modern times, but when you watch the trailer, you get to that action
Well,
side of the
yes.
spy stuff, So
Yeah, here's why, because there's a plot device in the storyline, right? It's a plot device, not the Severus thing, something else, that makes it feel very dated, and that would have been more accepted if it was, because this plot device is very outdated, and I was wondering why it works in the context of the story, right? Now again, if it was done in the 70s or the 80s, it would have made a lot more sense, this thing being there, right? It's a plot device, you know what it is. All I'll say is that involving clenching anus. That's all
yeah,
I'll say, right?
yeah,
Right. And to me, that now, if you know the actual science behind it, it's actually a very outdated idea. And I was like, well, this. So I wondered why this fit in a modern context at all. That doesn't make any sense. Like, the character not that old to be doing this, or if he's that old, he wouldn't be able to do this anyway. Like, it's something that don't make any sense. And I was wondering how I supposed to fit this or logically think about this in the modern context of the world. And I have only kind of one answer in terms of just, well, the kind of the meta aspect of utilizing the device, because the device will actually work. Like, they try to, unless I supposed to think it's some kind of techno thriller sci-fi thing, right? Where in this universe, this thing that's not supposed to work does work, or something like that. That's how I was supposed to think about it. And the only thing that will make it make sense is that it's an old outdated script that they dust up to try to make it modern. I don't know if this was a book or short story or something like that. That is not possibly the case, and they didn't change it. I don't know, because it made for a great scene, right?
it
But
certainly was a great scene, at least to me.
it's a good scene.
Yeah,
It fed into the characters and everything you need to learn about these characters. In that sense, from a narrative standpoint, it works. But in terms of the real world logic, it doesn't work. And I felt I still think I'm one of those guys who you need to kind of match that, or at least attempt to match that, right? I'm that kind of stickler, right? So that's why the film, like as I said, if it was in the 80s, this would have made perfect sense. Or at least the characters thinking and making perfect sense, right? And so on and so forth. That's about it, right? So
yeah.
that's why this film, it's really good on atmosphere and it really works. But I really wish they did, as make the joke, cross your eyes and dot your T's, right? Like, I really wish they did that. Like, they just made sure and get these little things right, or at least square them a little better for the script to like make a little more sense logically. I don't know. That's just me.
Right.
It
Well,
don't, it don't
I
fall apart.
understand.
It don't fall apart or it's a mess or not like that. But I felt, given the nature of the material, it should have been like this thing. Like, if these characters are so smart, then they should have thought of that. At least in that, like I am a dumb guy. I think I'm a dumb guy, and I thought of it. So, like, if I thought of it, they should have thought of it. Like, that's how you should think about it. Like, the average audience member should be like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt about it. I don't know.
Right. Well,
So
I understand, but yeah, just few things few before we get to Rita, right? But having seen it twice, I was really impressed by the writing though. I thought that the writing was just
yeah,
so clever,
yeah,
just great attention to detail as far as what characters see, how they react to things and
right,
whatnot. It's a
exactly.
very dialogue heavy show, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
small,
be
small
prepared
subtle.
to cork ears as you see through that and listener, because this will
Yeah,
reward you a lot if you listen to what characters are saying, because there's a lot
there's a
that's
lot
being
of
said.
yeah, it's a lot of like great like character reactions, like just small subtle changes in the mood and attitude. Because again, that's a big part of George's character. Like again, I'm not spoiling anything, right? Especially in something involving a certain chana masala, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
it's that right. They make it work in the conceit, but again, that's part of the science of it. Because again, like okay, I'm not spoiling anything here, but there's another version of this, like in Sherlock Holmes, where the character uses quote unquote handwriting to judge personality or something like that, right? In Sherlock Holmes, that was the old the one with Robert Downey Jr. Right,
Oh, that movie. Okay, okay. I thought it was
right.
the
Now that stuff,
oh gosh, the Benedict Cumberbatch series.
not that one, no, not that one. Yeah, it's the argue, but the point is that don't make any sense, and that's like outdated nonsense now. So it's the same thing. Like you're supposed to accept that the character is this gifted person at this thing, and that's why I didn't have a problem with it. But like in the real world, that is nonsense. So you have to just kind of give it up for what you're trying to do. But because it's so modern, that's the problem. Like a big artifact of being modern is that stuff is outdated bullshit. So it's
All right.
that.
All
I'll
right.
let it go.
I don't want to like critique that scene, right? But maybe it may
Exactly.
have to do with the character saying early on, "I don't like liars," so he just had
No,
to
no,
do this
exactly.
thing to
No,
kind of prove his
no,
point,
that's
I
a
guess.
skill, eh?
Huh.
No, that's a skill. They set that up, right? That's a skill. But
Right.
again, I have to treat it like a superhuman skill. It's basically a superpower.
I got it.
Like he just
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
treat it like that. So again, not a big deal because it works for the story. Again, Fassbender is excellent in this. As the role, it works as that. That just
Yeah.
that it's a great stoicism, and then they hide the emotion on the stoicism, and characters having a breakdown, and certain characters more honest with the emotions and whatnot. Especially with when you find out. A lot of the plot revolves around what Naomi Harris does and her career, and I like, all right, all of that works too. So it's like it's fine. Like I don't really have an issue with it because it,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. And then you can get into the argument. Well, no, the entire thing is a kind of corrupt or at least a compromised scenario. You get given the outdated metrics and the moral decisions people have to make anyway, and lives are lost because of these things, and so on and so forth. You can get into all of that critique of the film. But the film doesn't try to get into that. It doesn't need to. But I felt they could have just like I don't know, just squared that a little better in terms of the general idea versus the conceit. So that's about it. That's my only like major critique. I'm going on and on about it, but you get the point, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
do, I do. Well,
exactly.
yeah, but
So
outside
go
of
ahead.
that
Sorry.
though, I thought that the direction was strong in this too. Just
Strong, very strong. Yeah,
both seen it in Gemso and seen it in my house,
yeah,
my TV screen. It still look great
yeah.
though. Just well shot though. There's the cinematography
Yeah.
is on point, right?
Yeah, that there's a first scene with the candles and how the candles are placed and the lighting and it
Yes, yes,
it
I
it
love that.
it edits and cuts really well with the conversation.
Yes,
Like those dinner table with multiple people is surprisingly hard to edit around. You gotta get the song right and have that bounce around. But how they shoot it is like the camera is like a distant, like almost like a video camera. Sorry, a security camera in the
security
corner.
camera. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In terms of
Yeah,
where it's
and
framed. Yeah.
it's shot unusually, but it works in terms of how it flows and how it cuts. And yes, just that scene alone is like really solid stuff, and I thoroughly liked it for what it was trying to do and say.
Yeah, me too.
Another great scene is the well, this not a big spoiler, but the scene involving like let's say a satellite is being turned off or switched off. That's
Yes,
all I
great
see.
scene, great scene.
That's a great
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, how again it frames up just the tension of it because it doesn't try to overly heighten the tension like a Bond or Bond film. It's very subtle. You know that they know that if they mess this up, they fucked. And they make it work in terms of like what it is. But then when you find out who doing what and why, ultimately, like who's the ultimate string puller in all of this, that works for what it is. As I said, my last point on this is, and I'll take and then give rating. Uh, I'll say, as I said, because it's a modern script, a certain character was not as smart as I felt he should have been given what he was supposed to do. Given the modernity of it, if it was in the olden times, that I can understand him getting catch. Like if it was
Right,
like the
right,
80s,
right.
70s,
I
even in the
agree.
90s,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah, even in the 90s, him
He
getting catch by this.
he was a tad bit sloppy. He's a tad bit sloppy.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I find you, and again they set up that he should be sloppy given like well he has a certain problem, and you see him do that, and that's the reason why there's this thing involving another character. I don't want to say anymore, but he now comes across as very sloppy. Like at the end, it's like, all right, well, why are you this sloppy? And like, what you're supposed to, I get that you're sacrificing yourself to the greater good because involving another character, but it still come across as just, oh no, this character just kind of dead dumb dude. Like it feel like that at coming down to that's why I said the third act just unravels slightly. Not a big deal because it's still the ride that the journey gets you there, and the journey is better than the destination ultimately. But that's about it. Yeah, rating for me, quick. Yeah, a really high 8, very high 8, probably a low 9. And again, it's only pulled down because I felt if they did write that third act stronger, or they had the resolution a little stronger, flowed a little better, it would work a lot better for me. But other than that, I thought this was generally excellent. It to get you there, and all the acting and the character work is fantastic stuff, and I can't be mad at that. This will more than likely make, honorable mention, if not a top 10 for the year, unless some really great movies come out between now and then, right? But this was solid stuff for me. I really loved it.
All right. Well, for me, I forgot to mention also, as before I get my rating, I really, really was impressed by the acting throughout, man. I thought that everybody
Yep.
did their damn thing. Even relatively smaller characters like Tom Burks or
Yep.
or Pierce Brunson. I thought that he was really great in his performance, right? But yes, the
Yeah.
cell is Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett. Boy, who'd have thought that
Yeah.
they would have such great chemistry together, right? I love
Right.
just that dynamic of we love each other, right? And we passionate about each other, but at the same time, given our professions, I know you want some shit, you know I want some shit, but we still we respect each other because we work in the same field and because of we professions and whatnot, right? But at the same time, there's always the questions of what's she up to, what's he up to, right? I like that. I actually like that, and I love how the show itself springs up from that, right? It's not just there as just some side plot. It actually, kickstarts the story, if you will, right? So I love that, right? But yeah, other than that though, overall, I just really enjoy the cool, like suave kind of laid back approach to this genre. You don't see films like that every day, right? And it's from a veteran like Steven Soderbergh, who, as far as I could see, could pretty much make whatever type of show he wants, right? But that's last point before I get to rate it. So this movie actually came out like a few weeks ago in the States, but we got it here in Trinidad last week. But it's so funny, ironically, that this movie is now out on digital. So yeah, I don't think that it will be in theaters, let alone Gemstone, once this review comes out. But I still say that whether you see it theatrically or digitally, I think there is worth either way. Yeah, definitely check this out. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This is one of my favorite films of the year so far. Not in absolute love with it though, but just in terms of just this moody, laid back, spy thriller, and whatnot. One that is less reliant on gimmicks and violence, but more on the dialogue and just the banter
Right.
and just the movement of certain chess pieces, if you will. Yeah, you don't see films like this every day, man. You really don't. So yeah, for me, I'm gonna give this a strong 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it when I saw it in Gemstone, a few days ago, and I enjoyed it I enjoyed it even more at home because yeah, I had the subs on, so I was able to pick up. Oh, this is what going on. This is what you see. Because yeah, this is a show that is heavily reliant on dialogue, and yes, it is British as well too. So you had to kind of
Right.
cock your ears even more and understand little accents or whatnot, right? But yeah, there's a lot of detail that is given at you, and not everything you'll understand, right? But it's when you really lock into what's going on, who's playing who, and all that kind of stuff, and you see how everything plays out to the end. You be like, yeah. That's the show right there, right? So yeah, we both highly recommend checking out Black Bag. It's really worth checking out, man. Definitely worth checking out. And now the outro to let you all know. So yes, folks, this marks the end of the BBB Radio era of our podcast experiment, or at least that's how it started off,
Right.
literally 10 years ago, but now we are moving forward into a new name, pretty much the same stuff that we've been doing before, but we're gonna emphasize just a little bit more on music. So yes, you will be hearing me. We will be talking more about music going forward, but that's not to say that we're not gonna talk about TV shows or movies
Right.
or games or whatever it is. Just stuff that is worth checking out, right? And yeah, at the same time too, we have our, just, new chapters in our lives to look forward to, right? We are in our 40s right now. We are unks now, so we have to approach life differently, right? In my case, it's just more about long-term benefits, right? Just making sure that everything is set, if the rain falls, so to speak, right? So just being on top of things when it comes to that, right? And this, for me, most importantly, I think this is the reason why I've been doing this for so long, right? Just saying, look, like if this one thing could be done, right, with limited resources, yeah. But let's see how far we could take it. Let's see what other creative risks or attempts we could make, right? And yeah, let's see how we can monetize this thing. Let's see how we could make this benefit us in the long term, right? Not just creatively, but yeah, financially as well too, right? Because there's a lot of artists, a lot of creators down here, sure that trying to do the same thing with their talents, with their passions as well, right? And that's, we are that same boat as well, right? But, we are just the ones who will just never stop trying. We will keep doing, keep learning, keep growing, but it's all about progression, all about getting better, right? So believe you me, with this, new chapter that's on its way, yes, things are going to get better. That's the goal, right? In more ways than one. So, Ricardo, your last words, as with the final send off here. Anything you want to say here?
Yeah, nothing really bigger, major. It's just bigger, better things, movements, and we will see. As they say, with the new material and what we're trying to do, and hopefully we'll just have some better content and some better stuff coming along. I hope for the future. Later.
Yes. And lastly, you will be seeing us. You will be seeing us in the near future. That's the best way we can sum this up, right? And yeah, that's pretty much about it. So once again, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're listening to this. This is the final episode of BBB Radio. I know this is not the end of it all. This is just the start of a brand new beginning. So yeah, this was Matthew Bailey and
Ricardo Medina.
And we are signing off from another episode of BBB Radio. So until the next one, take care, stay safe in and out, and it's a wrap.